Good evening. I'd like to call to order the first meeting of the City of Menifee Parks, Recreation, and Trails Commission. It's an honor and privilege to be part of the first commission here in the city. And today we have a few housekeeping items to do, as well as some training and an overview of the city's system. We were intending to do a swearing in at the beginning, although we are still waiting on one commissioner who did call ahead, said he would be running a bit late. So we can hold off the swearing in until a little later. We can still meet as a group, and that's not a conflict at all. So in that light, we'll go ahead and move forward. I will do just a quick roll call. Commissioner Zimmerman.
Here.
Commissioner Rosen.
Here.
Commissioner Gaunt.
Here.
Commissioner Croy.
Here.
And Commissioner Baker. Currently absent. Okay. Why don't we go ahead and do flag salute? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to agenda approval or modification, and we'll go ahead and open it up to commissioners who may have any items to modify on tonight's agenda. Any at all? Okay, great. This evening we have no presentations as it is the first meeting. There will be some overview and PowerPoint that are done during the director's comments a little later, but no presentations for the purposes of acting items for tonight. Next, I'll go ahead and open it up to public comments for non-agendized items to the public. Do we have any?
You know, we do. If we'll just pretend I'm Margarita, she will normally do this for you, but Paul Wiggins has requested to speak.
Okay. Yes. Yes, please.
Paul Wiggins, live in the Romeland area, Kadena. Hello to the new commissioners. Due to, just like in The Godfather, when they have a wedding, you have to grant anybody's request. I thought I'd be the first one up here, and hopefully you have to grant my request. So, in Romeland, we're trying to develop more of the community involvement, and what I'm asking is for help or direction, or how do we get a community center set up that'll be workable, that we can start getting the people in the community, having a place they know they can go to and meet and start and get involved with that community. Right now, there's very little community involvement. I'm getting involved. George Rexborough is getting involved, a few other people, and this is as good a time as any to try to bring the community together and going forward, especially with all the develops in Romeland. That's going to be such a huge growth area in the next few years. So that's my request, and anybody has any ideas or what we can do with that?
Great, thank you. We will definitely meet about that. We are completing an agreement right now with Valleywide for program delivery, which includes their existing center over on the east side in the Romeland area, and I think there are some ways we can connect the community with the programs that are currently in place. Next speaker.
Melody Winterhead.
Good evening, gentlemen. My husband and I are homeowners at Audie Murphy Ranch, and since the skate park was completed, we've seen a lot of young boys actually there without their helmets, and we are deeply concerned. There are also bicycles in there, and those kids aren't wearing helmets either. And if I had to hazard a guess, I would say 70% of the kids in there throughout the day and on the weekend do not wear helmets. My question for you is, what is it going to take? Do one of them have to get killed or maimed before there's some way of enforcing, forcing them to wear helmets or preventing them from being there? And so it seems to me that an incentive would be the best thing to do. And I spoke with Robert earlier in the day today and said that if there was a way to carry a message to them, like shut the park down within a day's notice, say on a Saturday, and post a notice that says, this park is being closed in an attempt to get better compliance with the requirement to wear a helmet. And we will continue to close it down on sporadic days to make sure that we carry that point home. And then what I think I would like to do is talk to our homeowners association manager and ask her to send a notice to every homeowner and ask them if their children are at the skate park, are they wearing a helmet? I'm really concerned that someone's going to get seriously hurt there. And the only thing I can assume is that it's a liability to the city because it's a city park. So, thank you.
I agree with you. That is a concern. Perhaps we could put this as an agenda item. I know we're not allowed to talk about it when it's not on the agenda, but perhaps we could do it as a future agenda item. Thank you.
Yes, we can. So we'll add that to future agenda items as well. Are there any additional speakers? Okay, thank you. Okay, normally we'll do approval of meeting minutes at this point, but since this is the first meeting, we don't have any. But I will take this opportunity to pass the baton over to City Clerk briefly to give you a quick 101 on using the speaker system as we move forward. In case you haven't used it before, in some cases it can be a little tricky, especially when there's a lot of discussion going on. So.
Thank you, Mr. Lennox. Your speaker system that you are looking at when your chair is chosen will be where Mr. Gaunt is sitting right now. That indicates some buttons there, and if you'll notice right now where it says clerk, one of them is flashing. That means I'm making an RTS, request to speak. Look at your green button, and you will see that you all have one of those, request to speak button. What I'm going to do, we were thinking everyone's name is not the council names, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to number each of the monitors in pretty big numbers so that the chair, whoever's sitting there, can look down and see whose number is blinking if it makes it easier. After a while, whoever sits there will quickly pick up on whose seat that is and who's calling to talk. It is best to run all your requests to speak through your chair. That's the way the decorum policy calls for it. So without just speaking, you would stop, look to the chair for a request to speak. So that's that button. Now, on the top, your mute button. If it is lit, your microphone is not on. If it is not lit, you're talking. Hence, this will take a while to get used to. Don't worry. It's okay. We have people who've been here 6 years and still have absolutely no idea how to work it. So no worries. Just know that if you are not speaking, please mute your microphone. So when you lean over to say to your friend, that's a dumb idea, no one will pick up on it because you've muted your microphone. So just keep that thing off. It's very hard to remember this, but just kind of hang in there with it. You'll get really used to it. And these are easy things to finally get used to. But the request to speak, green light, it's a yellow button and it turns green. And your mute button is, if it is not lit up, you're live. And also, the IT guy would like me to say to you, yes, I'm here, Derek, don't eat your microphone. If you're hungry, we'll find you food. But when you get very close, problems happen. So you'll need to be close, but not on it, and then you won't feed back, etc. So just kind of stay at a reason. You'll learn that too. It'll all come to you eventually. So that's all I had.
Great, thank you, Kathy. Next, though, just to go back to you again, though, Kathy, is some discussion about the Form 700 and Statement of Economic Interest.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going to do a brief introduction for you. First of all, we're going to talk about the Form 700, the Brown Act training, and then ethics training, but we're going to do it a little differently. On the Form 700, this is required of you as an assuming office form. I am going to send you each, after this meeting, an email with a link to that. It is really easy to go online, pull up that Form 700, type it in, print it out, and then sign it. If you're confused by it, call. Your new best friend will be the FPPC. The number is right on the bottom of the form. If you have detailed questions, is this stock reportable? Please call them. I can't help you with that, nor should I, but I can give you basic guidelines, what to fill in. It's an assuming office form for the Parks, Recs, and Trails Commission of the City of Menifee, et cetera. Even if you have a Form 700 on file, as Mr. Rosen does, you still have to fill in an assuming office form for this position. And then you are going to end up having to file an annual next year as well. Unless you're in the office the last 3 months of the year, then you'll begin the annual process. So I'll do that. At the same time, on the email, I'm going to send you a link to ethics training. It's through the League of California Cities Institute of Local Government. It's a very good, very easy training. Please remember that it tells you it's a 2-hour training, and if you try to leave that training at 1 hour and 50 minutes, you won't get your certificate. So make sure you're on that computer 2 hours, take the time you need at each section. I can honestly tell you that the ethics training that you will take, by and large, will not apply to you because you're not making decisions for this city. You're making recommendations. It isn't that you're going to go out and consider a decision for an agreement or a contract or whatever, but it nonetheless is required for your position. So you do need to take that training. And the third thing is, I will also send you the decorum policy at the same time. The decorum policy is written so that it says council. It means all members of committees or commissions and committees of this city that are duly appointed. That's you. So you can substitute the word council for Park, Rec, and Trail Commissioner when you read it. It involves several things, which we're going to go to here in a minute. And that even includes how long a speaker has to speak, okay? So you can review that. If you have any questions, again, call we. That's kind of what we do, so we're here if you need us.
Question, Kathy?
Yes, sir.
Did you have a time when you wanted the 700 form in the ethics training?
Oh, thank you. On the ethics, please relax and take your time. If you can get that in the next 30 days or so, that'd be ideal. On the Form 700, down at the bottom, you must date it within 30 days of the date you assumed office, which I believe your appointments were on June 4th. Am I correct? So you want to make sure that date you sign your name and put it down there is July 4th or sooner, or July 3rd or sooner. And if for some reason you're struggling with the form, but you're working on it, just make sure the right date's there, but get it if you're a day late, I'm not going to have a problem. That intent of the laws not to punish you for trying, but in fact to look for actual violations. So it may look daunting, don't let it. I'm happy to help with it, and most of you have probably already filled those out in your past.
Kathy, if I can interrupt here, in your binder that you received on dais this evening, there's also a small packet for you to fill out for your W-9. That way, this is a stipend-based commission per your attendance and per the ordinance that's established a commission. You have to fill that out in order to receive your payment for your service. And in addition, you'll need to meet with Pat Grobe, our HR manager. So I believe she reached out to each of you either via email or phone call. If you didn't get a call, that's okay. It's not too late. We can certainly set up some meetings so you can come in and get the paperwork taken care of. But that has to occur prior to the city being able to issue checks to you.
Okay, let's do a brief Brown Act overview. The Brown Act came around quite some time ago, and basically the premise is very, very simple. If you're going to talk about my life, dear body of appointed or elected people, please give me notice. If you're going to talk about something that might affect me, give me notice. Put it on an agenda, post it several days in advance, and give me a chance to speak about it. And that's what the Brown Act does, among other things. That puts the burden on your staff, Robert and his staff, and Jen and myself, to make sure your agendas come out in a timely manner. Those agendas will carry what you want to discuss. So let's talk about how this works. All meetings of the legislative body, that's you, of a local agency shall be open and public, and all persons shall be allowed to attend those meetings. This is just simple, common Brown Act information. Now, what's a legislative body? Well, you are. The council, Parks Commission, the City Planning Commission, city committees, such as your Senior Advisory Committee. These are Brown Act committees. Their agendas must be posted. Once you determine your regular meeting date, which has now been set, correct? Then those are regular meetings, and they will be posted a minimum of 72 hours in advance of the meeting. And that's how that works. So you can kind of keep an eye on how we're doing on that. Let's see. A meeting. This is where it gets interesting. The definition of a meeting is exceedingly broad. Okay, it isn't just where we're sitting here. If the three of you are determining to meet at the McDonald's and have a chat about any business that's coming before your body, you're violating the Brown Act. Don't do that. Where three of you are gathered, you have got a problem. So you need to remember that a meeting can include, I think it goes into it on the next slide, any form of deliberation, including a serial meeting. So, for instance, if Mr. Zimmerman feels he has a really great idea for you to consider, or sees the agenda and realizes he sees something on there that's a great idea, Mr. Zimmerman might call Mr. Croy and say, I think I'm happy we're going to talk about this. Let's talk about that. That's not a problem. But if Mr. Croy picks up the phone and calls Mr. Gaunt, now we've got a problem. We've had what's called a serial meeting. You just can't do it. And I told the Senior Advisory Committee, make the reply to all button disappear. You don't see it, you don't have it, stop replying to all. The exemptions are if Robert or his staff contact you with factual information. We want you to know we're going to be bringing you this information and we want to share it with each of you. Absolutely no problem. When you push reply to all and say to him, great idea, Robert, let's tell you, I'm going to vote for that. Now we've got a problem. So indicating your feelings about any item coming before your group. I know nobody likes the Brown Act, but it is the law. There are remedies if you mess it up, but you don't want to do it. So you just got to be careful with the hub and spoke or the serial meetings where you have talked to one person and somebody else talked to them. It may seem innocuous to you, but it can be a very big problem. What's not a meeting? A social event where you're not talking about city business that's in your commission's jurisdiction. You don't need to worry if you went to a conference or the mayor's breakfast, state of the city, and you talked to a couple of people and said it's just another gorgeous day in Menifee. That's not a problem. But when you pull the two other people aside and you have a discussion about the fact that your commission is about to consider something very important to you, now you've got a problem. So as long as you're not discussing that business of your jurisdictional boundaries, and your jurisdictional boundaries are pretty well defined by your ordinance that put you in place, that I'm sure all of you have and have read, and Robert, you've provided that, correct? To them, the ordinance?
Yeah.
So as long as a majority.
Yeah, the ordinance governing or establishing this committee, or this commission rather, is within your binder here tonight. It's also online.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think it just became effective and has now been posted on the city's Muni Code. Yay, clerks. So we have to post that agenda 72 hours in advance, and we have to write a reasonable description of the items to be discussed. So it doesn't have to be more than 20 words, but we do have to say, we're going to ask you to consider a recommendation to council for a new trail. I don't know, I'm just making things up now, but you get it. We have to be careful how we put that on there. It has to be something the public could pick up and say, oh, I might be interested in that. I'd like to show up and listen to that. You may, at any time in your meetings, you may make brief reports. By report, I mean, the other day I went out and I saw the trail, it was great. I see that it's working out for that group of people. Or a reference to some factual information, those things you may do during your comments, no problem. And you can certainly, as staff, to go look into something. What Mr. Rosen and you all just did was say, that might be an interesting thing that she brought up. I might like to see that come up sometime. It causes a problem only because if someone comes to the podium, and I told Robert I feel like I should stand up at every meeting and say this, people feel frustrated because they have something that's really bugging them, and they wish you would tell them exactly what you're going to do. I have a problem with the way you're doing X, Y, or Z, and the tendency is to want to begin a discussion. The minute you do, you violate the Brown Act. You can give them short, factual responses. I believe there's an answer to that. May I have someone from Public Works call you and talk to you? Mr. Lennox, can you answer that? Or please let me have staff look into it and get back to you. May I have your contact information on your form? These are things you may do. You may not ask them their name or anything about them if they don't want to give it, but unless you know their name, you don't know when to call them up. So unless you expect everybody to sit and wait for you, it's good to have a speaker slip, but how much they put on it is completely up to them. That is not required of them to speak. And they only are to speak to you on matters of jurisdiction of your body. So if they come to you and ask you about potholes, feel free to refer them to staff where we can get them the information they're asking about, unless your committee's been asked to, for some reason I don't know, consider a recommendation on potholes. So what you can't do is you can't begin a conversation. You just can't. And again, I know it's frustrating, and it's hard to understand why that would be, but it's just the rules, and we have to live with that law. Any item on the agenda may be spoken to by anybody, and if they wish to speak to something not on the agenda, Robert has included a public comment section for you, and your public, as they did, may then speak. It is not on any item on the agenda, but then they could also speak about an item. They've still got their 3 minutes to do that. When you notice that I say 3 minutes, the legislative body may adopt those regulations and has in the decorum policy. 3 minutes is it for them, and that is what I'm saying. When you read the decorum policy, read it fits you too. So that's already a set thing. And there's also a limit if there's going to be 25 speakers who each have something to say on the same item. Sometimes the chair will say, get with each other. If you're all about to say, yes, I want you to do that, why don't you all get together and say, all those 18 people want us to do that. It makes it very difficult if you have 3 minutes times 30 people to get through a meeting. I'm not seeing that yet, but we'll see how it goes. There is nothing to stop someone from criticizing you. Kind of need to kind of get over that. So frustrating as it is, they can tell you just everything you've ever done wrong. There is nothing that can stop them positively. There are regulations about cursing or using foul language. It's just not necessary, and certainly you can ask them to please be a little more considerate. It is difficult. I've seen meetings where small children were there with their parents, and some people got maybe a little tough. And public conduct is important because the room can get loud, and it makes it very hard. I've had to sit here at times and quiet down this section of the audience because I can't hear what my counsel is trying to say to me, and that's tough when you're trying to take minutes. So if that becomes out of control, whoever your chair is will take over and say, hey, calm it down. He or she is going to be, well, in your case, he is going to be the sergeant at arms and the person in charge of that. The ethics training I did talk to you about, it's about any public official who receives compensation, and the fact is you do, therefore you are, so you take ethics training. That is why committee members don't have to do it, but you do. They're not receiving compensation. It does require a full 2 hours, and please remember, again, to stay on that 2 hours. If any of you have any questions, this has been brief, there's a lot more to the law, but if you have any questions at all, please holler. Jen and I are here in this department to help you with those things, and we're happy to do so. But your main contact will always be Mr. Lennox. He is, he's not new at this, and he will be able to get you taken care of and find out what it is you want to see about that agenda. So anything we can do to help you, let us know.
Great, thank you, Kathy. At the pleasure of the commission, I'd like to propose a reorder of some of the agenda items. Because we are missing one commissioner, I did get a text while Kathy was giving her presentation that he is on his way. I'm assuming his ETA is probably about 15 minutes or so. If we can move the elections to the end after the director comments, if that's okay with the commission, so that way you have a full body to vote on the chair and vice chair positions.
Mr.
Okay.
Director, why don't I take a seat on the other side, let your staff come in, and then when you're ready to have me swear in, I could do that.
Thank you.
That-
So while they are transitioning, we will jump down to director comments, and I'd like to start out real quickly before my staff come up, or while they're coming up, and introduce them. This small group of three, including myself, are really the lifeblood of the department. Obviously, a fairly new department. This was the first full fiscal year that the City Council funded the department, and obviously the director position as well as the two analyst positions. So my name is Robert Lennox. I didn't introduce myself before publicly. I'm the Director of Community Services. As Kathy mentioned, I've been doing this for a little while. I have about 15 years in Park and Rec experience, about half of that as executive management, executive leadership experience. So this is a great city to work in. It's a great experience with a growing city, new developments left and right, and new opportunities for parks and amenities throughout. So we're really looking forward to growing that and serving the community. In addition to myself is Alan Yun, who most folks in the city already know because he's out and about at the events and at various project sites. Alan is our senior admin analyst for the department. He's been here for a number of years, and before this in the city of Paris, doing, I think, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, some streets and irrigation in some of the parks as well. And then we also have Margarita Cornejo, who's our management analyst, and she joins us from the private sector, although she's been with the city now for a couple years, if I'm not, yeah. Both analysts, very sharp, very capable, fully understand the scope of responsibilities of the department and all of the facilities that this commission is going to be responsible for recommending to council. So we're happy to serve the commission and the committee. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Alan to do the facility overview.
Commissioners, staff, and audience, I'll be presenting a brief overview of the park facilities and our rec programming. Robert kind of already did this, but Robert's the director, Margarita's the management analyst, and I'm the senior admin analyst. This map right here is a simpler version of the map that's in your packet. This map only shows city Menifee parks and Valleywide parks, but the map in your packet will show both park systems and HOA parks and future parks. Beginning with Audie Murphy Ranch Sports Park. This is our newest park on the west side of town in the Audie Murphy Ranch development. Current park hours are dawn to dusk, and the park size is 11.29 acres, and the funding source is a CFD.
Just to add a couple things, if you have questions about any of these sites at any time, feel free to interrupt and ask. We'd be happy to answer those.
Next, we have EL Peak Peterson Park. Park hours for this is dawn to dusk, and park park size is 4.81 acres, and its funding source is CSA 145.
And this site represents the only park on the west of the I-215 that includes a dog park, both small and large dogs.
Next, we have La Ladera Park, also on the west side of town. Park hours are dawn to dusk, and the park size is 8.3 acres, and funding source is CSA 145. Next, we have Lazy Creek Park and Rec Center. Park hours are dawn to dusk. Park size is 3.4 acres, and this holds our Lazy Creek Rec Center. And the Rec Center is open 8 to 5, and it holds our co-op preschool and the after-school Trek program. And the funding source is also CSA 145. Next, we have Lyle Marsh Park. This is also a dawn to dusk park. Park size is 6.07 acres, and funding source is also CSA 145. We have Nova Park. Park hours are dawn to dusk. Park size is 3.35 acres. Funding source is CSA 145. Here we have Rancho Ramona Park. This is actually on the east side of the 215. Park hours are dawn to dusk. Park size is 1.87 acres, and the funding source is CSA 33. Now we have effective July 1, 2014, the city will assume responsibility of the K. Siniceros campus. The campus consists of the senior center, the old EDA offices, and the old Care Connexus office. Now we have the landscape right-of-ways and street medians. We have Gallery Oaks right-of-way, Holland Road right-of-way, and Calle Thomas right-of-way, which is the funding source is CSA 145. And then we have Audie Murphy Ranch Road right-of-way and street medians, which is funded through the CFD. And then we have the K. Siniceros right-of-way, which is funded by general fund. We also have Quail Valley Fire Station, Bradley Road right-of-way, and Cherry Hills Boulevard street medians, which is funded by general fund. And then we have Han Road, Newport and Han street medians, and Han Road right-of-way, which will eventually be funded by a future Regent Town Center CFD. Okay. These are the weekly rec programs that are run out of the Lazy Creek Center, consisting of a Menifee co-op preschool, which is for 3-year-olds in pre-K. We also have Menifee Wee Folks, which is the Parent and Me class. And then we also have the Menifee After School program, which is for 6 to 13-year-olds. These are the current summer rec programs that are also ran out of the Lazy Creek Rec Center. Menifee Camp Trek. Trek stands for Teaching Relationship Enrichment to Kids, which is for 6 to 13-year-olds. It's an 8-week summer camp program, Monday through Friday, and there's 5 field trips planned on Wednesdays for the program. Then we also have Menifee Camp Trek Junior, which is just for the little kids, 6 to 8-year-olds, which is also an 8-week program, Mondays and Tuesdays. And then we have Menifee Movies in the Park, which is a 5-movie summer program. We just had our last one last week at Lyle Marsh, and we had about 150 people. And then City Menifee hosts and participates in a number of special events throughout the year, including Springfest, Menifee Better Together, Quail Valley Cleanup, which is one of the major cleanups that we have throughout the year, for the year. We have Independence Day Parade and Celebration, which is this Saturday. And then we also have the City Birthday in October. And then we have winter holiday events, holiday tree lighting event right here at City Hall, Breakfast with Santa, and Spark of Love, which is in Quail Valley. And that is it.
Mr. Yun, would you mind going back a couple of slides, maybe 3 slides, where you were talking about some of the services that happen at Lazy Creek Park, the after-school programs and things like that? I'm curious about how long the city has been involved in that and where those came from? Is it part of did it used to be part of the MARS program, or what was the evolution of that, and how did we get to where we are today? Yes.
The three programs that we have from the Lazy Creek Center, the Menifee Co-op Preschool, Menifee We Folks, and the Menifee After School Program, were all pre-existing programs that we had from the county days, from the EDA. And we just, from council direction, it was a seamless transition, so we just kept the existing programs. And eventually, when there is time, we will develop more programs out of that center.
Thank you.
I have a question concerning the sports park at Audie Murphy. I know there was a problem with graffiti. Did they actually catch the person who did that?
Yeah, there was a report, I think, 2 council meetings ago that they had,
I never saw it anywhere else. That's why I was asking.
there was a report that they had a lead, and it may have resulted in an arrest. I didn't get any additional details, but on the positive side, we didn't see any reoccurrence of graffiti. So since then, the skate area has not seen additional graffiti. The only other type of graffiti we've gotten is the small pen graffiti, like in the restrooms, which we get abated through our contractor pretty much the next day. Okay, a couple of things to add, and Alan's presentation, he did mention funding sources to kind of clarify for the commission. That really refers to how maintenance and programs are funded. Certainly there is a collection of revenue for fee-based services, but not everything is fee-based. A majority of the services that are provided are subsidized in one way or another. So when Alan mentioned CSAs, those were community service areas that were once the county service areas. That's a special tax that's assessed on each home in that particular area. And then a portion of that goes toward maintenance and programming. So for example, in CSA 145, which is pretty much the largest one servicing each of the parks in the west side, that goes toward maintaining the turf, irrigation, utilities, program supplies, and staff salaries for those particular parks. In addition, there's the CFDs, which are fairly new. The oldest one, I believe, that's funding a park is CFD 2012-1, which is that the Hidden Hills or the Audie Murphy one, 2000-1? Audie Murphy. So that's the oldest one. The newest one is Hidden Hills, and then there's going to be another one that council has already heard about, and action will be taken, I think, at the upcoming council meeting for the citywide CFD. Again, the same purpose exists, which is to basically fund the maintenance of the parks in part, as well as other features. So some special tax districts may also fund street lighting, as you saw in CSA 33. Sometimes law enforcement, there's all sorts of purposes that those funds can be used for. They're typically identified in the origination documents of that tax district. So,
I just have a question about the amount. Is each person assessed the same amount?
each home within a given service area, so as in a CSA, would be assessed the same. But if you're in a CFD, say CFD 2012-1, you may have a different rate than CFD 2012-2 because it's a different geographic area and has a different scope, so to speak. You may have more parks, less parks. It just depends on how big your area is.
I would like to see that end up on an agenda item too.
Sure,
To discuss that, because what you're saying in effect is that different people are paying different amounts of money.
and that currently is true.
The same city.
For the same city, that's true. It's based off of the area within. It's based off the area within they live, where they live. So, at the next meeting, we can provide you with a summary of what those
Thank you.
those payments are. So, The other thing to highlight in Alan's presentation is each of the parks that you've seen. Some are newer than others, and so staff has been out and about making some assessments and evaluation of those sites in anticipation of the transfer of those over to city oversight and planning for some capital improvements, more so along the lines of deferred maintenance. So some items that include irrigation, planting, site furnishings, signage, and then monument signs are things, those are lower hanging fruit that we're tackling right away. Some of which have already occurred and some are currently on order and should be in place in the next couple of months. These are particularly important as we enter into a new agreement with Valleywide for operation and maintenance of those parks to have them up to a particular standard so that we can ensure that our public is getting the best experience and best service possible. So those are in the works. A portion of that is paid for out of the park diff fees, park and trails diff fees, and larger capital projects are something that this commission will have to consider on a move forward basis. Although there ideally should be a master plan that lays that all out for multiple years, which, as you know, council had decided to delay for 1 year. So in the meantime, staff will be focusing on some of the deferred maintenance items. I think, is your microphone on there?
There you go,
Yeah.
sorry. You mentioned that, and I think as a future agenda item too, I think it'd be a good idea to coordinate with Boys and Girls Club, Boy Scouts. I've had some experience up at Cabian Park. We put a bunch of volunteers together, and with well-coordinated efforts, you can do a lot with very little. So I think that'd be a good idea to have in that master plan document, have a way of communicating with all the different voluntary clubs and stuff. We can get a lot done for nothing.
It's a good point to make. Part of that master plan was to incorporate an evaluation of existing programs, not only Valleywide or former county, but also the nonprofit organizations that are out there filling voids that exist. So definitely. Okay, any additional questions on the facility overview? Okay, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Margarita to give you a quick overview of the pending contract with Valleywide for maintenance and recreation.
Hi, good afternoon, commissioners, staff, and public. As Director Lennox just said, I will be giving you just a brief overview on the Valleywide Recreation and Park District Operator Contract. On April 30th, 2014, a workshop was held regarding the city's parks facilities, specifically the West Side parks and facilities, which Alan just went over. Following that workshop on May 7th, 2014, City Council directed and authorized the city to proceed with a 3-year contract for operation and maintenance of city-owned parks, right-of-way, medians, and recreation facilities with Valleywide Recreation and Park District starting July 1st, 2014. At this point, the city and Valleywide are finalizing that contract, and we're working on currently the 3rd draft of it. So we should be finalizing it very soon, as July 1st is coming up literally next week. And apart from that, the binder that you guys received today, just to give you a general idea of what is included in there, it has a profile of all the facilities that Alan just went over, as well as a comprehensive map of the full park system within the city, private, public, Valleywide, and future park sites. We also have the latest Menifee Matters that was just mailed out, a copy of the citywide map provided by the Chamber of Commerce. General overview of the commission, its appointment, the ordinance, who was appointed on June 4th, a summary of the types of programs that are planned for both Lazy Creek and the K. Cenicero Senior Center, and lastly, but also importantly, the components of the general plan that addressed open space and trail, as well as the 2 reports that were created by the Trails Commission, or Committee, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Margarita. The detail that's included here is intended for your review. Today's meeting, obviously, there isn't intended to be any action. We would like to come back at the next meeting and set some priorities about what direction that the commission will go, what portion of your time will be spent on facility planning versus focusing on program review, versus other items that might be of interest, trails, connections, things like that. But today, we really wanted to give you all the information so you could take it home, have some time to absorb it. It's a lot, and then come back to the next meeting to provide additional feedback. Now, that said, as Kathy mentioned during the Brown Act training, you're welcome, you're encouraged to give me a call or send me emails to ask any questions you might have. As I can clarify, as you read through, you're gonna have questions, I know. I encourage you to give me a call. I don't encourage you to necessarily talk with each other much about it, because we do want to agendize most of the action this commission is going to take. However, give me a ring. We can even set up one-on-ones if you'd like, so that we can go over the information, because it can be dense. Overall, we want to provide a comprehensive approach to park and recreation within the city, and certainly focusing on one area more than another would just serve to the detriment of the rest of those areas. And so it's a big area, and we understand that, and it's a small staff, but if we approach this collectively, I think we can do a good job in this first year. So in the agreement itself, a couple of things Margarita pointed out. Yes, next week is that transition date. Tuesday is the 1st. We are trying to plan a meeting with Valleywide either for tomorrow or on Monday to go over that contract again, hopefully come to some resolution and then get execution. As of right now, we are intending Valleywide to move forward on the programming and maintenance starting on Tuesday, and without any service interruption to the public. So our discussions offline are, for the most part, secondary to the transition of services. And then Margarita also mentioned future park sites. I'm sure that's a question mark, what that means. There are a number of developments that had already submitted and been approved either by the county or by the city prior to the creation of the department or creation of the commission, had been approved for not only the housing track maps, but also parks within those that were part of the conditioning of their development agreements. So any future ones that come will be brought before this commission for review. In essence, we want to make sure this commission has the opportunity to see what types of amenities, what those layouts are, what the target service group is for the families that may be moving into those new communities, so you can have a say and provide input on what those look like. That's really the intent. So future parks is what's listed on those maps, or ones that have already been approved. But we also know there are plenty of additional ones that are on the horizon. We've sat down with many developers over the last few months that I've been here, and each of them either have in their development agreements already been conditioned to build parks and still have to submit their maps. And so you'll have a chance to weigh in on those, and they are numerous, so they're on the horizon. So any questions about that or about the agreement? Okay. So we tried to delay it as much as we could, just for the sake of the 5th commissioner. I did get a text that he's probably about another 15 minutes out. So yeah, if the commission would like to move forward, then certainly I think the clerk is ready to go ahead and swear you in, and we can start there.
enough room, is there? Do the best you can to get yourselves in there. So I've been administering the oath of office for a long time, and I have to admit, I still get emotional. So if you will raise your right hand and state with me, please. I state your name. Do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I'm sorry, excuse me, I just lost my voice too, and lost my place. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, and that I take this obligation freely, without mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office I'm about to enter.
Well, I'll congratulate you. It's official. And we will do a couple of, well, two more official acts before we close this meeting. I'm going to go ahead and open up the nominations and take a motion for the position of chair of the Park, Recreation, and Trails Commission. So any motion, entertain now.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Lennox. I'd like to. I would like to make a motion that we elect Mr. Marty Rosen as the chair of this commission. I've worked with Marty a long time on the general plan. I know he's able. I know he's been involved in the Parks and Recreation and Trails business for some time. And I'd be honored if my colleagues would join me in electing Marty as the chairman of our first Parks Commission.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations. Our new chair is Commissioner Marty Rosen. Before we shuffle positions on the dais, why don't we go ahead and move on to vice chair? I'll open up the nominations for any motion for vice chair.
I would more than love to make a recommendation for Bill Zimmerman. Oh, there we go.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. Bill has a great amount of experience. He did a wonderful job in the Planning Commission, and I think we are truly blessed to have such experience already in this new commission.
And I would second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations. So we have a chair and a vice chair, and won't make you get up and move now unless you'd really like to, but certainly for the next meeting, the chair will be positioned in front of the speaker control panel, and the vice chair immediately to his left, and then others in alphabetical around the dais. So congratulations to all of you for being part of this. We certainly appreciate your service, and we know the community does as well. Any comments?
I would just like to ask my colleagues here for any future agenda items that they might like to, put on the list, so we could, I don't know, 2 or 3 each time we meet. And there was one other thing. I was speaking with the mayor, and he had suggested that we meet more than once a month. And I would like to open it up to the people here to decide what they think.
Any, you'll recall what the clerk said, any decision to do something like that would have to be agendized, so I wouldn't entertain discussion about that right now. I would only state that the current meeting interval is set by ordinance that was approved by City Council already, so we can certainly put on the agenda for next meeting to discuss a more frequent interval as a recommendation for council to amend that ordinance.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, along those same lines, was there any discussion, or is it set in stone as far as the times of our meetings? In other words, can they be daytime versus nighttime?
The meeting times are set also by the same ordinance, so it would simply mean it'd have to be an amendment approved by council. Typically, commission meetings like this are set in the evening just so that we can allow the community to be a part of the process. If it's set during the day, most folks are working. That's just something for commission to consider. Doesn't mean it can't happen, it just means that's usually why it's set at that time.
We could alternate even, sometimes daytime, sometimes later. Is that possible?
That is also possible. Again, I just recommend we just put it on as an agenda item for the next meeting so that you could officially discuss it as a group on the record. Yeah.
I was just sorry that we have to wait a month to do this. That's why I'm,
Understood.
okay.
Okay.
Future agenda items? Gentlemen?
Yeah, I have one. I think Mayor Mann spoke about it at the last meeting. I think one of the things we should get on the agenda fairly quickly is discussion about having some trailheads. I think connectivity to, I think it'd be important. Menifee is right in the center of 4 or 5 other cities. And I think it's really important that we find these common points for some trailheads. I know there's a lot of good areas that already exist. It's just a matter of finding out what we have to do to get those on board.
Please.
Let me just add to that. Commissioner Croy just mentioned some trailheads, and I also did hear the mayor talking, I think, what's being referred to as a staging area or two. And the Trails Committee, and I know I kind of worked with the Trails Committee a couple of years ago prior to the circulation element portion of the general plan, and we were trying to map out some locations, and we did identify 3 or 4 different places that are ideal. In fact, even there's one on Trailhead Drive that's perfect for it. It just needs to have funds allocated and those kinds of things. So I agree with you. The times are the essence. We need to really move that one quickly and see if we can't get that at least on our council's radar screen so that they can consider that for budgetary purposes and things like that.
Mr. Chairman, one item that we talked about at great length during our general plan hearings over this past year and before was the need someday for a regional park facility, a large park facility, a fairground-style facility, perhaps in conjunction with the county or the state, or somehow plan in the future for a large recreational pavilion-style facility for the Boy Scouts that you spoke of, and the Cub Scouts, and the Girl Scouts, and the equestrian units, and the livestock people, and the motocross people, and something to bring everybody together with a pavilion, stadium, long-time future project. I know it's a costly thing we're talking about, but I think if we start talking about it and start planning on it and thinking about it, I think it can be done. And especially, I know that the county owns property somewhere adjacent a very large parcel of property adjacent to our I believe it's our eastern boundary, somewhere around Briggs Road or somewhere. Anyway, we talked about that during our general plan meetings. I'd like to see us move toward that ultimate goal, to have a first-class facility for our citizens, especially our youth.
I would like to just add that I have spoken to the county supervisor about it. He is leaning toward giving us just that. The only thing is, it wouldn't be in Menifee. It would be adjacent, because the land that they own, the county owns, is not within the city. I don't think that matters to you.
Probably not.
All right, but keep in mind that I have been negotiating with him. He is really ready to do that. So
Good to know.
it's good to know. We just have to stay on it, keep going after it.
While we're adding agenda items, I'd like to also add the opportunities within the public utility corridor up in the northern portion along McLaughlin Road. There's a set of power lines that basically transects the city. We've already spoken with Edison a couple of times, and they've said, you guys can do what you want to do there as long as you don't build anything. So I think that's something that we might want to talk about, opportunities there in the future for maybe we create some of the things like Commissioner Gaunt's talking about, a regional park, and maybe because the location of the public utility corridor, it can be strategically located to take advantage of that.
Just a quick summary then to make sure I have it. I will also be taking any of your future agenda items and meeting with the chair beforehand to ensure that we have a nice solid agenda for the upcoming meeting. There'll be plenty more items that I'm sure this commission will come up with, not only on your own, but in your communication with the committee or with the community members. We'll try to prioritize this between myself and the chair and then bring them, obviously, to the commission meetings. So for the next one, at very least, depending on how many of these get on the next agenda, I'm not quite sure yet, but trailheads being one, skate park safety being another, discussion on meeting time and dates, equestrian staging areas throughout the city, regional park facility, and then lastly, utility corridor planning ideas. So that's the short list for now. But
Just one other item. I noticed that Mr. Wetter is here, and I think it would be a really good idea for us to, at some point, listen to Valleywide and what they are doing on the east side and what they're planning on doing on the west side.
okay, we can certainly add that to a future
And I'm
agenda.
sure
item.
Dean would be happy to do that. Notice I'm volunteering you. Thank you.
Maybe down the road, a future item might also be Riverside County Parks Open Space trails and where they are in the city, and if there's any projects that are moving forward and funding, we'd like to have an update on that, at least so that we can add that to our inventory of items on our own map. So.
You are trails for the county, but you know that we received $5.1 million grant to finish up the Salt Creek Trail. But at this particular moment, the piece that's being worked on is the one in Hemet from State Street to Winchester. Ultimately, that 5.1 million will cover putting that trail in all the way to Canyon Lake.
Okay, so I think we got a good list of items, and we'll certainly include the Riverside County Trails update as well as the Valleywide Eastside Programs update, and come back to commission with all those. So thank you very much.
We're going to adjourn. If there is nothing else, then shall we adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.